I'd say that's when it becomes, most prominent. So, in case we end up getting into more motifs, we don't have to, but we go with laughter. And this is where, like, say, and I'm thinking 2 steps ahead, say we end up doing rhetorical analysis and you want to write about laughter, and you don't have the confidence necessarily that I can't make this into a motif because I'm going to be stuck writing about the boat scene. Because if you do choose something like any kind of motif, based on the definition, what is paramount with your examples? It has to come from multiple places throughout the course of the book. But if you find that you are really kind of stuck with that one scene, what could you potentially do? And still write about it. Yeah, you could. That's true. Yeah. That'd be one. And therefore, the presence of the laughter being so strong on the boat scenes tends to be very symbolic. And so you could take a look at the symbolism of laughter within that, or even the symbolism of the boat trip, if you wanted to. And so where I still would consider motif in the sense that, okay, we definitely have laughter coming within the boat trip. Anyone off top there, I think of other places with laughter?
In the shower, like we said before, like they wouldn't be as joking, but they were like literally just like laughing the whole time when they were in the shower
before it gets to George and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So the when they have the cleansing that is taking place in the shower. No. Which is still going to be, to your point, kind of condensed in the sense that's in those latter stages of 3 and 4, to almost kind of do a combination, though, of what you and Virginia just kind of said. What is laughter indicative of? For them, at least. I mean, whether on the boat, whether it's in the big party, whether it is in this kind of shower scene where they're being human, So where, and not that just because you laugh at someone, I have power over Libby now, I can laugh at her. But if you can laugh, you at least feel not restrained, as much as you did before. You feel like you have some life kind of coming through your lungs, and you can express yourself. The absence of laughter before that would be indicative of the fact that they are basically shells of humans, with the exception of who does have laughter really throughout the whole entire book is going to be McMurphy. So you're definitely right, Emma, that for the whole group, you don't really have a whole lot of laughter until those latter stages. And that doesn't even just include the patients, but also would be what other individual, I'm thinking with the boat trip, who also laughs. Yeah, I'm thinking hospital, though. You're right. Dr. Spivey, he's laughing. He's even kind of starting to stand up to nurse a little bit more when it comes to some things, even with like the basketball game being therapeutic and whatnot. Them playing basketball is laughing. They're getting shellacked, when they play against the A's. It should look like Addie's game tonight. Oh. No, but we should be the ones doing the shellacking. We've scouted this team. They shouldn't have a chance. We're going down. If we lose, I'll be very mad. But, even that, they're enjoying it because they're still running around when they're doing their fast break drills and all that kind of stuff. So the absence of laughter for those, longer parts with parts 1 and 2, I think this kind of emphasizes it as well. So I think it would still be considered to be motif just because of how it kind of builds up throughout the course. But if you don't feel like that you're going to be able to represent as much of the book, you could certainly do something where you take a look at the symbolic scenes where the laughter is coming. And these are pretty big scenes in the second half of the book. And it could also kind of be a compare-contrasted juxtaposition, how the patients are before versus how they are toward the end of the book with it. So I'd say you still would be able to do that motif. But when it comes to that rhetorical device, there's certainly going to be people I know who are going to take a look at the motif of fog, and there's going to be others who are going to take a look at the symbolism of the fog with specific scenes. And it's not that one's going to be right or wrong, it's just going to matter how you go about presenting it. Not much. And he even makes the comment after the EST that I'm getting out of this pretty quick. So he still kind of has that haziness that's going on. But why would Chief not be in the fog anymore? I mean, why does it make sense for that fog to dissipate for him? Because why does Chief like the fog? It's this kind of safety net. So before, where you have Chief hiding in the fog, and that's again more parts 1 and 2. Now, he's not really hiding anymore. He's kind of displaying himself a little bit more. He's coming out. He's a much more active character. By golly, we could say he is a what kind of character? He's a dynamic character because there is a change that takes place, but he doesn't have to go to kind of reside in that fog anymore because now he has the ability to communicate. How else does he change? Communicating. All right, so he's getting bigger, as Izza has on her little quiz there, where she does her drawing. He's so cute, this little 6'8" giant of a man.
Murphy told me I'm big, and I am.
I love Murphy must be stuck in a hole. Like, he's so cute.
And because he's bigger, he can now become more active and more he's like physical dominance. Just hey, how's Warren feel? Little stiff, in the back after you're getting crushed against shower tile. So he's willing to rebel. And I mean, what's his ultimate kind of show of strength that he has? So what's he asserting? Control. He has control over the machine. He has control to break out. He can follow the geese and go up to Canada and all that kind of stuff. So he is certainly doing his big thing. Also, and really, what before the control panel, what is kind of like that passing of the torch moment? And I mean, you could make an argument. This could be a DRQ. Does Chief do the right thing, the morally right thing, with killing McMurphy? I mean, he suffocates him. It's like euthanasia essentially. It's a mercy kill. But what for Chief? What's that kind of representing? Over Chief for control over Chief.
Yeah, because McMurphy was always controlling Chief, and Chief was getting better about it, but it was always McMurphy was oh, let's do this, and Chief was okay, and he goes along with it, and then Chief has to make the decision.
So you have, and certainly because of the context of it, don't want to be like, hey, I simply don't need you anymore, so I'm going to kind of kill you. But in a way, I don't need you anymore. I'm big enough now on my own that I can continue to kind of move on without you.
Could you almost say, for most of the novel, McMurphy was the big character, and then whenever Chief started getting bigger, he got smaller?
Yeah, well, and McMurphy, and during the boating trip, Chief says it quite a few times that he just seems kind of tired. And it's really like in the shower scene where he kind of has this puff up, where he gets big again, but then it kind of starts to go down. That as one grows, the other's going to kind of come back down a little bit. The nice thing too, a little detail that Kesey throws in there after he kills McMurphy, and plus this is Chief really going out on a limb too, because I mean he's responsible now for the life of someone else. Who knows what could happen to him if he does not pick up the control panel, throw out the window, and be able to leave. Before he leaves, he almost takes something of McMurphy's. He almost takes the hat, and he tries to put the hat on, and it's too small. I can't fit, McMurphy's hat can't fit on my head because he's small, I'm big. That's a cute little scene. So he puts the hat back, and then kind of goes off on his own. So yeah, certainly with Chief, he doesn't need to be in that fog anymore because he is asserting his dominance now at this
Can
point.
you also say with the shift from larger to smaller and between McMurphy and Chief that McMurphy got more tired as Chief got stronger as well too because
Yeah.
he kept mentioning that he kept getting he showed that he was tired.
And really, I don't know when they go that size is only going to be power or energy, but it's kind of all along those things that, I mean, what McMurphy is doing really is it's going to take a toll on you, no matter what. The amount of treatments that he's going through, the constant, and think about, relationships that you have with some people. With Nurse, even when he is being a pain in the butt, he's doing it in an extremely polite way, so he can't do anything wrong. It takes a lot, to be like passive aggressive all the time for some of us. Some of us. It's still going to be a lot of energy for him to be able to do that. And so, as he's exerting that energy, it's going to start to kind of take that toll on him, which could be part of the reason why. Why does he want to get Chief to be big? It's a little bit of protection. It's not bad to have a 6'8" bodyguard walking around with you. Why do you think I'm friends with Mr. Curran?
Could you almost say that McMurphy is his source of power? Because he kept bringing Chief out of his shell and putting him in these uncomfortable situations. And as he got more confident, that's how McMurphy started to get more tired. It was like the shift of power.
Yeah. Well, and not even so much maybe. I mean, in some ways, yes, shift of power. I don't think that Chief is looking to take power, and not that you're suggesting that he's looking to take power from McMurphy, but it's we're not having a situation where you have the apprentice, whether we're talking about Sith Lords and Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, they're trying to take power away from someone else for their own. But he certainly doesn't need him as much anymore. And I think this is kind of like Shay's argument starts to kind of come in, where she was mentioning, I think McMurphy, at the end of the last week, okay, is he a savior or is he a scoundrel? It's kind of becoming more that he seems to be McMurphy, more, at least for Chief and the men on the ward, savior, even though Nurse is still alive, does not kill her or anything. But what does she no longer really have? Control, and that can definitely be emphasized by the fact that Harding has left, other people have left, that they don't feel the need to be there anymore, and you only have a few people still there because they're either committed or Martini still sees multiple, people all over the place.
This is kind of on a different topic of the book, but with the shower scene, that doesn't normally happen in mental hospitals, right? That whole, I think that's really long. I don't know if that's
No, to answer your question, no. For one of your independent reading books, The Jungle, people kind of look as like a watershed moment where it kind of changed the way that capitalism, industry, businesses were operating at the beginning of the 20th century. A lot of folks look at this book as kind of doing the same thing for mental hospitals and institutions and things like that. Certainly, EST isn't looked at the same way, now as it was in the 50s and 60s and things like that. So, no, it shouldn't be at the very least, put it that way. But also, it doesn't mean that every single mental hospital was the way that the ward is kind of set up. And certainly understand, where there can be concerns about Kesey's gender, viewpoints and whatnot, because the nurse really is the bad person. Why is she a bad person? Because she makes the men not feel like they're men. But I always like the inclusion of the Japanese nurse on the disturbed ward, where she's a small, diminutive woman. She's not big, power hungry, the way the Nurse Ratched is, but she's going over the wounds for McMurphy. She has gum because she knows the Chief still likes gum. Not every nurse is going to be the way that Ratched is. So I do certainly think there is some typecasting characters, to make the plot kind of work the way that he wants it to. At the same time, with him being a night aide, so like Kesey is a Turkle, a Warren, a Washington type figure in hospitals. Doesn't mean he's treating people the same way, but that would be his interaction. I'm sure he's seen, heard, some of his own kind of horror stories in a way.
Kind of going back to the tired thing, Murphy seems tired at the end, but in the beginning with the fog, when somebody's tired, it kind of seems like they're going through a disease all the time. So it almost seemed like Chief was always tired.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had to take the pills to even sleep. So I think, and then in the end, it doesn't talk about the fog or him being lethargic or anything anymore. So I feel like it's kind of that's also.
And I think on Monday we'll probably go into this a little bit more too, but with that flashback, that he does have, where air raid is getting mentioned multiple times, and when he's getting that ESD, it's also a little bit of kind of like, not only a battle for him with himself with the fog, but also just kind of like with his own personal demons. His mother does not come across as being a caring, motherly figure. Yeah, so you have kind of like these demons that he's dealing with, and a lot of folks are gonna question kind of keeps coming up. Well, what's up with the dice, the gambling, and all that kind of stuff that's going on? In that scene where you keep trying to roll snake eyes and whatnot. Keep in mind, what is McMurphy? He's a gambler. He's a con man. But you gamble, and in order for reward, you have to be able to take some risk. And when Chief's in the fog, he's never going to take a risk. But now he is willing to, what's the pun? Roll the dice and see what happens, and him lifting the control panel, him kind of breaking out, him killing McMurphy. That's all dice rolling. That's all gambling. That's all him taking a chance that he certainly would not have been able to do before. So in a lot of ways, there is some McMurphy that is now kind of slid over, into Chief that wasn't there before. But that gambling aspect, which, and even that is a motif you could even kind of argue. But it does kind of come to the ball that, hey, you got to be willing to take a chance at some point on something. Otherwise, you're going to be in the fog. You're going to be at the beck and call of others. You're going to be, submissive to other people, no matter what. So, okay, Shay, just you and me. Let's talk. Ignore them. What are you thinking? Why?
Well, okay.
Cuz laughing at you, by the way. She just chuckled.
Good for her. I mean, like, good. I'm glad she's enjoying it. So, all right. So we have McMurphy, and he comes in. So we have a whole talk about him being the savior in like parts 1 and 2. Okay. So overall, so since it's like from the point of view, I guess, of the patients, like overall at the end, like he kind of got them the victory. Like when he came in, they started getting better. As he kept like pushing them and like trying to get them to like get outside their comfort zones and do all that stuff, then they felt more normal. They felt better about themselves. And eventually, like they started leaving, and overall, like him being there kind of pushed them to make themselves better.
At the expense of? Like he saves them, he gets them to leave at the expense of, which you said to me earlier. They leave the hospital, but what happens to McMurphy?
Well, he dies.
So he's willing to sacrifice himself for others. Julia?
I was going to ask you what the religion of
What Shay's newfound religion is?
Yeah,
RPM.
There were two things I noticed. Should I give one or two?
Start with one, and then we'll
Okay,
judge on one before you
he
get to
calls the EST Crown of Thorns.
Okay, he asks for. So we know the EST table is shaped like a cross, and then he asks this question, or not where, but do I get a crown of thorns? I'm going to write where's my crown of thorns since I've already started to write that. I think you've earned a second shot.
Okay, and the second thing was, it was someone, I can't remember who said, like, my hands are washed of this, which I think is a reference to Pilate, but it's been a while.
Yeah,
It's
the doc, it's the guy who's basically undisturbed, who's in charge of the shock shop when they come up, and he makes the comment, I think it's 3 different times, as I hold up 2 fingers. It's a nice thing about first period, I get the Kings out by later in the day. But yeah, he goes, I wash my hands of this, which is in New Testament what Pilate says after the decision is made that Jesus is going to be crucified.
You could also argue that Jesus is the disciple in a way.
Sure. Wash my hands. Well, and not only therefore does Chief become the disciple, but because Chief is the narrator, the whole book kind of has a gospel type feel, kind of to it, with Chief being, one of those disciples. Gospel of Chief. What's the big? Well, we'll just let you guys keep going.
Like, could you almost parallel, like, McMurphy coming to the hospital as, like, when Jesus enters Jerusalem for, like, the last week of his life, because, like, he knew he was gonna, he kind of knew in a sense that he was gonna die in a way, but he didn't. He reached that point in the middle of the book, like, he was gonna.
Yeah, I'd say by middle of the book. Yeah.
In the middle of the book, like, he reached that point, and then, like, when he, like, kind of backs off because he wants to kind of save himself, it's kind of like how Jesus, like, asked God in the Garden of Gethsemane, like.
I think that watershed moment ends up being the boating trip. You know, after the boat, and he's kind of getting worn out and whatnot, is when it kind of starts to happen. Now it's a boating trip. What are they going to go do? They're going to go catch fish. Christian symbol is, you know, fish. Who goes on the boating trip? McMurphy and how many go?
12.
12. 12 of them go. Because you have 10 patients, and you have Dr. Spivey, and you have Candy. So there's 12 of them that go on the trip besides McMurphy. So it's McMurphy and 12. Before Abby said about Ellis, anyone remember Ellis's line to Billy before they go on the trip? Go be fishers of men. You know, which is really funny that Ellis can't do anything but shakes his hand, go be fishers of men, off as they go. And on the boating trip, what does McMurphy do, like literally when they are on the water? Pretty much nothing. Okay? And you know, when the disciples in the New Testament, again, I realize we've got different levels of familiarity with it, which is fun. By no means do you have to do religious illusions or anything like that for your essay. You can if you want, you don't have to. But when Jesus and the disciples are on the water, big storm, and he does pretty much nothing. Yeah, takes a nap, sleeps. So the boat's going all over the place. So they're the ones who have to get the fish. They're the ones who have to bring it in. George is the one who steers the boat in. And as they're coming in, all of the guys who were on the dock that were giving them a hard time before are now recognizing them as being, you know, men. What do they have before McMurphy's death? They have the last party.
The last supper.
The
I
big
knew it. It
party.
was the last supper.
They have their big little party. Virginia?
Also, like when Chief and McMurphy are getting the UST, it said that he was brought back because they were getting like the other people were starting to think of him as like bigger than he was because he wasn't there, and so because he wasn't there, they were kind of like idolizing him and thinking he was a martyr, and so she had to bring him back because they were already idolizing him.
Right. And so that's why she does bring him back, you know, and even then they're going, this kid. And they're not doing it like in a doubting sense, but you know, no, she's trying to kind of pull one over. You talking about Billy with Emily here?
No.
So
Doesn't like-
disappointed in Billy. That was so like just disappointing from start to finish.
I know that whenever McMurphy gets electroshocked, he gets electroshocked like 3 times, I think, and it was like a traditionally like holy number.
For a variety of religions, not just Christianity, no, but you're right.
Yeah, and then I was kind of thinking like whenever he kind of like suffered, like Chief there was to suffocate him tonight, it kind of like represents Jesus' soul like waking up out of the tomb, because now Chief is kind of taking on that role like McMurphy, and he breaks through the window.
So you know that the body's not resurrected, the soul, the idea, the mantra of Chief is certainly still there.
Even him being brought back out, it's like Jesus being slain on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing him.
And again, this was set up really with Ellis from the get-go. Because remember we said that Ellis is kind of like a foreshadowing of what could happen if you go up against Nurse. Well, this is what happens when you go up against Nurse. But it's more kind of a holy kind of martyr. So we'll keep going with some stuff on Monday. Certainly, you could argue that what is now kind of a way that the Keezy does this is there's a satirical nature to it. If you're going to take someone who is such a rotten scoundrel and portray him in such a holy light. So it doesn't mean that McMurphy is Jesus. It's really making parallels. How messed up this area is, the situation, this environment is, this guy can be really big. No, you don't want to be him when you grow up. Do not.